Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talk of the League on the Balls Out podcast. A little bit later than scheduled, so we do apologise. We were supposed to have a show last night as well, and we do apologise, but life just gets in the way. But we're here, we are going strong, doing our best to get through a very dull and boring January transfer window. But I've got Will alongside me, and we're definitely going to be talking about Arsenal tonight. But let's first introduce him. Will, how are you this evening, mate? You good? Oh, good start. There we go. Is that better? We're good. We're back. How are you?
So, we all good?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Takes you.
How you doing, mate? You good?
We're
yeah. Doing well.
Not doing too bad. Sure. Kept on going on a Thursday afternoon. You know?
That's it. What can we do? Well, we're going to we'll probably start with Arsenal, to be fair, because it's only fair that we do, really, isn't it? So, obviously, last night was the second leg of the Carabao Cup against Newcastle, and unfortunately for Arsenal, it's a 4-0 battering overall. What are your thoughts on the game itself, first of all? And then we'll talk about other things going on in a sec.
Yeah. To be honest, the game, for our sense, was very boring. Like, we had a nice bit of the ball, just tried to prod them open, didn't have that many chances. Odegaard had his chance at the start to make it possibly 1-0 after the VAR helped us stay at 0-0. And then they just go straight down the other end and score. But I'll be honest, I didn't ever expect us to beat Newcastle. Even when the draw came out, I was like, damn it. Once we got Newcastle, I just had a feeling that we'd get knocked out. It's just something about Eddie Howe has his way of just beating us.
Yeah.
It's like, if I see them or Fulham, I'm like, damn it, our bogey teams.
Your bogey teams are Newcastle and Fulham. Yeah. So, I mean, the stats are pretty... Nothing really in it in terms of shots and on target and off target, but you obviously dominated the game in possession. I didn't watch the game. To be honest, I didn't even know it was happening until about halfway through. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. But obviously, the main thing about it is now, mate, is that it's another cup that you're out of. Yeah. FA Cup, you've lost out on to us, Man United. Newcastle have now knocked you out of the Carabao Cup. You're, without being disrespectful, there's not a good chance you're going to win the Champions League. I'd like to see... No, I wouldn't like to. I was going to say I'd like to see Arsenal win it, but I wouldn't. That's probably a lie. That's probably just me trying to be polite. But to see an English team do well, I would like to see. And the Premier League... We discussed this last time. That the Premier League is probably your last choice, but it's not like in the bag. What are your thoughts on the potential of another season without a trophy?
I mean, it is frustrating, all right. Like, you can look at it and think this year definitely should have been our year with the Premier League. Don't get me wrong, it's not over when City are fucked up, but you're relying on a lot of Liverpool mistakes, as I've said before, and I just don't see that happening. I did want to win a cup. I do want to win something. And look, maybe I can hope that somehow we manage to get through the Champions League somehow. But to be fair, no team would necessarily want to play us over 2 legs. No. And our defense is good enough, but we just ain't got the attack to win these big trophies, or we don't have this X factor at the moment. Especially while Saka's out. Maybe when he comes back, he can be a bit of an X factor in only the Champions League left. But yeah, it is disappointing to go out. But as I said, I just had a feeling that we would get knocked out by Newcastle at that stage. I wanted Tottenham, so that at least if we got to Tottenham, we had them. Because yeah, they just had something. Newcastle and Liverpool just had something extra in the cups this year that we just don't have.
So the Liverpool-Spurs game is ongoing. Obviously, Spurs are leading 1-0. So there's a potential really there for 2 teams to go up against each other that haven't won silverware. I mean, Newcastle haven't won anything for nearly 50 years or over 50 years.
Yeah, since 50.
And Tottenham's last trophy was the League Cup in whatever it was, 2008 or something. So
yeah, 8 or 9. So yeah, no, it's been years since they've won it, and in one sense, it's good to see a different team win it if they do, unless it's Tottenham, because they never deserve to win anything.
No.
I never want to see them win anything. And that's the last thing we need is for Ange to have a bit of a confidence and start
I was
saying
just going to
they
say,
had a better season than us.
my hatred for Spurs never really existed until up till about 6 months ago, when all I could hear was Ange is this, Ange is that. I'm just so bored of it, and I'm so sick and tired of this gravy train of fandom about Ange Postecoglou. I just think the man's a fraud, and I'll say that right now. And I'm going to clip this up. The man's
Yeah,
a fraud.
I don't think he's. You know what I mean? He's got one tactic. You know, inshallah and go. You know, and maybe he just got all this positive type because he came after Conte. He came after Mourinho, which the football there was so dire, and they had a few good players just to help him out. But as soon as they started playing good football, it's like, oh, this is the Tottenham we remember. But yeah, this is the Tottenham we remember. Down in 14th, was it now? 14th, 15th?
Well, that's it. And when he comes, I mean, his interviews really annoy me because some people see it as, oh yeah, he's no bullshit. He don't take no shit. Some of it's just point blank rude and arrogant, and not in a good way. Some of it is just downright disrespectful.
Hmm?
It's
No,
like
he
that
is.
interview. That interview a couple of weeks ago when they lost again, and then the I think it was for BBC, and they said to him, "Oh, it's obviously it's similar story." And they said in terms of defeat, and he said, "Oh well, that's a great way to start an interview, but it's the truth. Like that's your fourth defeat in something like 5 games. It's the truth. It's obviously disappointing." And he's just chatting. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems to, in his own words, it's just who he is, mate. You know, if he can't hide
Just who we are,
his
mate.
disappointment, he can't hide what he feels. And look, they're obviously being shit. So, like, he can't hide his disappointment that he can't be good enough to take them back up to where he wants them to be.
Yeah,
And look, he's got this arrogance of someone that's done something when in reality, like, he hasn't done anything major in the game. It's like he sees himself too high, and
yeah,
the words that come very often this week, he needs to learn to stay humble a little bit.
yeah. We should talk about that game. Actually, I can't believe we skipped over that game. That was a mad game of football. I have to
Look,
say, what?
that was definitely my favorite game all year. Anyway, like I went out to the bar, and usually I have this history of whenever I go out to a bar to watch a match, we lose.
Yeah,
Like I was the last one before that was the FA Cup match against Man United, and I know how that finished. So once we went up, it was probably the most amount of chest I've given celebrations went out ever, and it just kept on going, kept on going. And look, once the second and third went in to make it back to 2 and 3-1, it was just like, yes, relief, you know? Because yeah, they have been pretty poor this season. They've been missing a lot, and it's more issues than just Rodri being out. But at
yeah,
the end of the day, after all their talk from the just about equalising in the last minute against 10 men against us, we had to back it up, and we had to put them back in their
yeah,
place in our own mindset. And look, we may get slagged as a fan base for just seeing it as that one game, but it's a matter of defending yourself against any opposition that in next year will probably be fighting for a title against us and Liverpool again.
yeah. I mean, me and you both are enjoying the demise of Manchester City. It's quite entertaining to watch. But we all know. I think every fan knows they'll be back with a vengeance. That's for sure. And once
Yeah,
they get those players back fit, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah. So, what are your thoughts now on Arteta as a whole? So, obviously, you've beaten City 5-1 quite convincingly. You then lost to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. You're obviously out of the FA Cup, and was it? I apologise because I've genuinely not done anything else apart
yeah.
from work and sleep. But what are you? 6 points?
Six
Six
points
points
behind
behind
Liverpool.
Liverpool
They have the game in
with
hand
their
against
game in hand.
Liverpool
Yeah.
week.
So Arteta as a whole, if he wins nothing this year, and I've been arguing this for a long time, I think he's not under any pressure, but he should be.
I would somewhat agree that I think if we don't win anything, someone has to be under pressure. And
Mm,
obviously, Edu and everyone is gone. So they obviously chose Arteta over Edu in the long
yeah,
term strategy for what they want to do for the club. So I don't think, as long as we finish top four, that anything's going to happen this year. I don't think we're going to win a trophy this year, sadly. And look, I think things are just going to go on into next season, but they really need to sign a fucking striker. Like they
yeah,
just need to get the player in because it is the last piece of our jigsaw. Like you can see it defensively, we're in we're a good nick defensively, and yet Newcastle may have disproven that with yesterday's game, where
yeah,
but that's because they had Isak. Like if you put Isak in our team, that's a
yeah.
whole different game. We beat Newcastle easily. Like we're just missing that top world class, maybe not even world class, maybe just one level below top class striker that just will change a game and will just help implement our plans and our system a little bit better. There's just that little cog missing.
Look who's decided to show their face. Fucking hell, Evan. I haven't seen you for a long time. He's another one that's always fucking working. Nice to see you, mate. Really good to see you. We'll get you on eventually. I'm sure we will. We're not going to talk about Chelsea tonight, though, because we're not going to give you the satisfaction.
My signal was dropped. Six, I'll just keep it.
Oh, was that me or was
There
that
we
you?
go. No, I think things started freezing for me there, so I just gave it
Oh,
a quick
maybe that was
refresh
me.
to back it up. Yeah.
That might have been me. I do apologise. My signal, my wife. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, look, he's back again. So busy with work. No, it's all good, bro. When you can get on, I'm sure it will be. We'll do a big fan for when you come back. We will. We promise. But
Must.
no, what I was saying was obviously Eric Ten Hag won the League Cup and the FA Cup in his first couple of years and was still scrutinised for his performances in the league. But it just seems to me that Arteta gets away with a lot because I think it's partly got something to do with the fact he's a student of Pep.
Yeah, it's a hard one really to know. It's what are you going for? What are you trying to achieve? Like who out there will take you to that next level? And I feel like yeah, the board are a little bit scared to say because they can see all the promise in him. He's still a massively young manager, but it's whether or not he has the minerals just to take us
Yeah,
over the line, which he hasn't necessarily proven he can. He has won an FA Cup in the first year, but that was yeah, you saw his tactics, but people didn't believe against Arteta necessarily. They didn't give him enough respect. So then he came out in the big games against Man City and Chelsea and was like, "Yep, here we go. This is what we do. Win, win.
yeah,
I'm going to be good." Since then, when people start putting a little bit of respect against him and start defending the box, he hasn't necessarily shown a way of breaking that down anymore. So he's been scarred definitely from 2 years ago, and that doesn't help him. But he's just got to show something new, whether that be at the end of this season or probably next season. But he's really got to start winning and winning quickly. Otherwise, we're just going to stagnate.
yeah. I think one trophy helps propel a manager to go into next season. I mean, obviously, it didn't work for Ten Hag because he only lasted so many games, but it still kept him his job after the League Cup win because obviously a lot of fans were saying this is not quite what we expected. I think we still finished top four and obviously won the League Cup, and that was obviously great for it. You think, oh, first year that's brilliant, and then second year not so like really poor in the league, and then ended up winning the FA Cup out of the blue. Nobody anticipated that. And then yeah, it's really difficult because a lot of when you get managers sacked or managers get sacked, there isn't many managers out there that you would say are proven Premier League management off the top of my head. You're looking Jose if he wanted to come back. Not many Premier League managers, probably not many Premier League clubs would probably go down a route of a Jose. Struggling to think of any others.
The only one you can think of is probably if they get knocked out of the Champions League quite early, it'll be, say, an Ancelotti in the summer. That's the only kind of top class manager that you can look at and say, yeah, he'll do it. But I don't know, managers are just so different at the moment that you don't have necessarily these bigger names yet that have proven themselves.
And it's different to when, at one point, it was different because we had this sort of conveyor belt of managers just swapping around clubs. Now we don't really get that. Now we just get managers coming from completely out of nowhere. Nobody really knows about them.
It's hard to know where the next one's just gonna come from. It'll be like, oh, who's this manager of Sturm Graz? Will manage to be the next manager of a mad team, but I don't know. It's a weird one. All right, you're just going through a big shift with managers at the moment, and look, we're just willing to take that chance with Arteta. And look, it's worked for us long enough, like that it's gotten us to this level where we're challenging again. Like when you consider where we were before then, it's what would you rather be a team that is consistently good and challenging and not losing much in the league, but just not getting those moments, or a team that'll get those moments in the cup but be shit for most of the season?
Yeah, it's really hard to get that balance. I mean, it's obviously good from a Premier League competition point of view. Obviously, as a neutral, if you're looking at a title race, it's obviously great, but it becomes a point. I mean, like you said earlier, we all thought when we started seeing this demise of Manchester City, we all thought that this is Arsenal's year to then just take it by the scruff of the neck and go for it. And it's not really. I don't think you can give full credit to Liverpool because I still think that they've got issues that are resonating, and we started maybe seeing that a little bit in some fixtures that they're not really putting teams away, but they have got this attitude of we're not playing well, but we're still going to win. And I know that makes good Premier League champions, but I do think that this sort of the contract situation in the background is having an effect on them. But obviously, like we said, 6 points ahead of Arsenal, game in hand, which is obviously the Merseyside derby. Let's have a look at the score in the Carabao Cup. It is still 0-0, 25 minutes. So at the moment, Spurs will be going through to the final. I'm not sure how I feel about a two-legged semi-final in the Carabao Cup.
I don't know. It's always been that way, so you've always just kind of gotten on with it. But it does seem like a pointless game in a way. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure Liverpool managed to turn it around and say, "Yep, we're the better team over 2 legs, so we've gotten through." But
Yeah,
when it's the second best cup competition in the country, you know, like, is there any point for going for a second leg, especially when normally it's the top Premier League teams are in it? Like, you look at Newcastle, Liverpool, and Tottenham. Would we really want 2 legs at this time of the season? No. We take 1 leg and just go all out and play whoever we want to play and just try and get through.
You'd take a one leg in a one-off game in a neutral venue, wouldn't you? Rather than, and probably not Wembley because I'm sick of semi-finals being at Wembley.
Yeah, you kind of miss that old school feeling of like, oh yeah, it's going into a neutral venue. You know, like Arsenal v Newcastle being at Villa Park. You know, you just go in there, meet somewhere in the middle so that you can just prepare just for your opponent. Both of you will have known the ground because you'll have played it, but it's not an advantage to either of you, you know?
Yeah.
And it just makes for a better atmosphere for the city as well.
Yeah, there's got to be and even if Jim Ratcliffe gets this plan up in the air of this super stadium that he wants to build, that will probably end up being the second Wembley, as he likes to put it, or the Wembley of the North. So it will be interesting to see. And I would still like to see the League Cup continue. But it does seem a shame that it just always ends up being top clubs winning it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, all right, but Like, sure, they looked at even reformatting the way that the draw is done so that the big boys don't necessarily play the big boys at the start, didn't they? Like, they made it so that some of the big guys had to play some of the lower league teams so that they got a bit of a payout. So, but at the same time, that'll probably knock out a lot of the lower league teams as well quite
Yeah.
early. So it's one thing that you just look at. It's a big difference in the big football pyramid. Like the top is extremely stacked, and even the second layer and the level of the championship. You're just seeing the same teams going up and down now recently. That's just the way that the money is at the moment. So it's really tough for those lower league teams to try and get a chance in these competitions.
Yeah, and I think that's what the beauty of the FA Cup is that you get these wonder stories that come through, but you still end up with some really duff draws in the FA Cup. Some low league clubs needing the money, needing big payouts, ending up playing like League One clubs. And I know that will still be good for them, especially if it's like a Birmingham City or even like a Wrexham, because they'll get like TV coverage and the social media will go wild for it. But you would like to see a system where, say, I don't know, trying to think of a low league club, like my local team, Maidstone United. Obviously, they beat Ipswich last year in the FA Cup.
Mm.
It would be nice of them to have got a Premier League side in the next round, but I think they ended up getting someone like Coventry and got stuffed 5-0.
Yeah, to be fair,
So
they didn't do too bad in the FA Cup last year, though.
no, no, that's it.
Yeah.
And it does give a real buzz to the town. Like I work in Maidstone, or not far from it, and driving around all day, it was just a real buzz about the town. And for a little town or a semi-big town, but for a town like that to get such a big buzz about a footballing competition, it's quite mad. Let's have a look. I mean, I don't really want to talk about United if I can help it. Obviously, lost 2-0 to Palace at the weekend. I'll say my piece on it, and I've said it many times. I'm not bothered from now to the end of the season what happens in the league. I would like a decent run in the Cup, in the FA Cup, and I would like to have a decent run in the Europa League, but I could not care less about anything else apart from just being along for the ride. And the fact that Ruben Amorim, for me, I mean, Eric Ten Hag was the manager for me at one point until a lot was going wrong. And then, but for now, Ruben Amorim seems like the right man. He seems like a disciplinarian. He seems like he's got a standard to be set. And I think that's been proved with Rashford going out to on loan to Villa, which we will definitely talk about in a minute, by the way. Yeah, I just want Ruben to be given as much time as physically possible because I believe that once we do start building this stadium, he's going to have the Arsene Wenger effect. It's going to be, you've moved into your new ground, we need a constant flow of money. We need 5 years in the Champions League. And as an Arsenal fan, you will understand that as
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I remember them years, but they were definitely frustrating years because you always want to try and achieve better. But at the same time, where you are with your squad at the moment, it's like, is it really the best time to be building the stadium? Like, you haven't got probably the foundation of a good enough squad to get that revenue of Europe in because you're probably not going to get Europe this year unless you win the FA Cup.
wouldn't bother me if we didn't.
Yeah. But then if you look at that, yes, you'll still be able to attract good players because you're Man United. Why wouldn't you be? You'll always have that name value, but you're just going to start seeing some of the better players leave, and I don't know. It just, you won't have the same amount of flexibility in the transfer market financially just because it will be a big enough miss.
Yeah, I think you're right. We will get to a point where if we're not performing on the pitch, then players will start leaving. And I don't blame anyone for wanting to leave this club at the minute. It's an absolute basket case. It really is. And it's really difficult to get motivated to talk about United because we grew up in an age where there wasn't any social media until United started playing shit. Like when I don't think Twitter was really massive up until about 10 years ago, and we haven't won a league title in over 10 years. So do you know what I mean? Like, so to be a Man United fan at this point is hard, but because we spoke to Stu about this, Stu Woolley, and he said it's water off a duck's back to him because he's been a United fan or a United season ticket holder for over 30 years, so he's seen the good times, and then before that he saw the shite. So he understands what's going on. He understands that this is just we will come back stronger. But going back to the stadium, I wouldn't be surprised if they're thinking, right, if we're not going to get European money from this stadium or not a constant flow of European money for it, we're going to start. It is going to end up being a music venue. It's going to end up being hosting of like one day festivals, much like what Tottenham Hotspur Stadium do. Obviously, they've got Beyonce going back there next or this year or next year, whenever it is. You'll have the NFL. You'll probably end up having things like boxing, UFC. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE got involved and had a stadium show there. Because obviously, WWE did one at the Principality in Cardiff. There was talk of them doing it at Wembley, which I really don't want them to do at Wembley because Wembley is such a shithole to get to, especially from where I'm from.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're aiming for other streams of income, that's where they're going to get it from.
That makes sense, all right. And look, you've already got the name of the stadium, like it's such a big enough name, and it has a bit of history in football, all right. But at the same time, if you make it bigger, it definitely will become a big venue because it's like for all the
Mm.
people that don't want to play in London, then you've got something else a bit more northern that you can just go to a lot more easily. And yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. You just have to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit grander than your noisy neighbors across the road, and that will definitely be done as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And it's currently looking like it's going to be 100,000 seats. I don't really know. There hasn't really been anything else about like what's going to be around it, but I'm assuming it's going to be a bit like Wembley with a little shopping village and cinemas and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
I haven't been to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but I know they've got things like go-kart track and a little shopping centre there.
yeah.
Maybe, can't remember.
I've gone past it in the train. Wouldn't walk in there anyway. But I'd rather stay away. They can.
Yeah,
Now, to be
don't
fair,
really.
my cousin and uncle are season ticket holders in there, so they go there every week. God bless them.
Yeah,
But no, it is meant to be absolutely a brilliant stadium, and I'm sure that you will recreate a similar aspect up north. But look, I'm sure you'll be able to capitalize then on all the money spent in terms of the shopping malls and everything like that. But it won't mean anything if it doesn't go towards the football team.
no, exactly. And I think you've hit it on the head there, really. So if we start seeing this generational income of like whatever, it was something like it was going to bring in £3 billion to the UK economy for tourism and stuff. Obviously, brilliant, but we need to see improvement on the pitch for a state of. It's just so difficult at the moment to say anything positive about United, apart from the fact that I want Ruben to succeed so much to prove a point to these players that for over so many years that these players have been getting away with a fucking lot. Let's talk about Rashford, right? I've had many people on this podcast on this show and Red Devils Roundup where we have some people have really slated him, some people have given the benefit of doubt, and I've not really said much on it. So I will say my piece now and say that I'm bitterly disappointed in Rashford because he was he's United born and bred, or so he said, and to not to leave in such a fashion because he's not left in like a terrible fashion. He probably will come back, but we probably will end up selling him. But I genuinely want Marcus Rashford to succeed wherever he goes because it's disappointing that it can't continue at United. But as he's come from the club and he's an England player, I want him genuinely to succeed. There you go.
Yeah, I get that. No, I wouldn't be a Rashford hater, even if he scored his first Premier League goals against us to kill one of our title hopes that year. Uh, but no, he was a quality player and he had serious talent, but it just even the hunger just went.
Yeah,
Ironically, when you speak about Rashford and feeding children as well, um, but no,
yeah,
it wasn't. It wasn't just that. It was just. It seemed like United were on the downfall, and it wasn't down to him, right? But he then got the injury where he broke his back, and he was out for ages, and then he never came back the same player. And then once he started getting the abuse, it felt like he couldn't deal with it or just didn't want to, and
yeah.
then he may say that he was trying and kept on pushing and he'd have these good spells, but he never prolonged it long enough to actually keep on building the club moving forward. And it eventually it's just gotten to the stage where he's needed to move on for his own career, and whether or not he can actually get that hunger back at Aston Villa, it might never come back. And that's sad to say because he had all the talent in the world to be a top player, one of the best players in the Premier League. But
Mm.
you know, it happens with a few players, and once it's gone, it's very hard to get back.
It's disappointing. It really is. And one of the main things I'm glad about is that he didn't. He had so many big offers from Saudi, didn't take them because he wanted to play in Europe, which you have to commend because he would probably been on. I mean, he's on something like 300 grand a week plus at United. It would have been in the half a mils a week if he went over to Saudi quite easily. And in 2 years over there, tax free, you're probably looking at something like over 200 million for a couple of years' work. It would have been absolutely stupid money, and for a player that probably would have hit his prime,
Mm.
probably would have hoped this year to go over to Saudi. He probably would have banged goals in for fun over there.
Nah, like you can't bang his a certain level of his mentality and what he wants to do and his morals, but
Mm.
you definitely can't knock him in terms of that. But you know, he's got his chance now at Aston Villa. Let's see how much work he puts in and see what the future holds for him.
And obviously, we can only go off what we are told in the media and what Ruben has said in press conferences. That's all as fans and as amateur podcasters that we are. We That's all we can really go on. And if Ruben Amorim is saying in his press conferences that he's not training hard enough, then you have to ask. There was no way he was coming back to play under Ruben Amorim, and that's disappointing that he wasn't willing to. Again, this is only what we're being told. If he was not willing to apply himself in training, that's a disappointment as well.
Well, you see it with different players that have reached a very good level. Like you saw it once Arteta came into us, for example. You saw it with Aubameyang. You saw it with Ozil. That you start seeing these levels drop, and the player can possibly fight back, and the manager can fight against. But once it gets to that stage, like their career normally at that club is just done, and it's time for him to move on. Sadly, once it's gotten to that stage, I will say I haven't seen many work out better.
No, no, and like I say, I genuinely hope that he goes to Villa and does well, or wherever he ends up after Villa. I hope he does well because I want to see the Marcus Rashford that we had a couple of years ago, where he banged 30 goals in and genuinely looked like he was enjoying his football. And obviously, you had the Euros final at Wembley when he missed the penalty, along with Bukayo and Jaden Sancho, Bukayo Saka. The abuse that those three players got was inexcusable, disgusting, and is not right for any young footballer or young person to have to go through just because they miss a penalty. We should have had that game clawed up and sorted way before that situation even happened. So that's on Southgate for me.
Mm.
But what is the latest on Saka? Is it still looking like he's going to be out for the majority of the season?
I heard early March, so I think a couple more games, and then Watch now, he'll probably make his return against Man United, 9th of March.
Yeah.
That probably will be about it. But he's gone over to Dubai with the rest of the team today in the warm weather
Oh,
training.
nice.
So if he can
I could
get
do with
on the
that.
pitch and maybe get a bit into his legs, it might bring him back right on time. So, if he comes back in March, happy days. You still got March, a lot of games in March, a lot of games in April. Back for the whole of the Champions League run, providing he
Yeah.
doesn't get hurt again. So, no, it should be good. And then hopefully Martinelli's hamstring is only a slight tweak and not a long one. Because he
Do you
got
think
injured.
Arteta will let him go for? Do you think Arteta will let Saka go for international break in March?
He might pick up a little injury.
Injury.
Yeah.
He'll have a knock.
Yeah. Sure.
That's what I worry about now. So, as an England fan, you got Thomas Tuchel's first international camp in March, and with the Premier League being stacked with top English talent, there's a good chance that a lot of these managers are going to say, "Oh no, Declan can't go. He's got a knock. Oh no, yeah, Rashford can't go. He's got a knock. Saka can't go. He's got a knock. Blah 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 blah." The only player that might end up actually going is Grealish. That's only because Pep doesn't want him around.
No, you'll still get a good squad. It's just depending who's coming back from injuries and whether or not they want to risk it. Like, I know it's Thomas Tuchel's first camp, but he'll know the quality that Saka has and the importance Saka is for England. So if he missed that first one, it won't be the worst thing for him to miss one when it's not. Like, who are you even playing in the next international break, or is it anything important? Is it friendlies?
That's a really good question. England fixtures March. I think it's friendlies.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
So. Well, that's why whenever the internationals are on, I just kind of turn my head off, and it's just like, okay, what did happen? Did any of our players get injured? Yes, of course they did. Fuck's sake, bloody international breaks.
Yeah. Right, here we go. Oh, it's World Cup qualifiers.
Oh.
So a reasonable of importance. So we've got Albania, Latvia, Andorra. Oh no, Andorra's not till June.
Yeah, I think you can win those without Saka.
I hope so.
Yeah,
That would not be a good start.
I do want to see, mate, bloody hell, Lewis Skelly get a call up though.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him get a chance at left back because England struggle at left back.
Yeah, and there's nobody else in that position right now. I mean, you've got Shaw's probably. I'd be very surprised if you see Luke Shaw in an England shirt again, especially under Thomas Tuchel. I hope he does, because obviously, I want a United player to represent, but that's another player that's just riddled with injuries, and it's such a shame because that tournament at Wembley, he was without a doubt my player of the tournament. No shout about it. Another player riddled with injuries, but yeah, Miles Lewis-Skelly. You've got the player at name escapes me. Brentford. Is it Brentford? Ipswich, maybe. I don't know. See, this is how. Maybe I should start preparing for these shows a bit more. Honestly,
we all know that they don't have a lot of good left backs at the end of the day.
We've got no options at left back. Carl Walker probably will come in at right back, even if I think he's doing quite well over in Milan. He did a really good game against Inter, apparently.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, but I'm sick of this weather as well. I know we're changing the subject, but I'm sick of waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and be still fucking black.
Yeah, bloody freezing.
It's bloody freezing.
Blame the weather. Blame the weather for our shit football last night as well. Do a Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah. So we're blaming weather, not the ball this week. Okay.
Fact. Oh, God.
Oh, and just to make it a little bit better, Cody Gakpo scored for Liverpool in the 34th minute, so they lead 1-0 on the night, 1-1 on aggregate. Ugh.
That would go to extra time. Penalties.
Who would win on penalties between Spurs and Liverpool?
Liverpool. They've got an Irish goalkeeper. And Kelleher's a good penalty saver, to be fair.
He is a good penalty saver. They've
Uh,
gone quite reasonably strong, actually. We didn't actually look at this. Keller in goal, Connor Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, Salah, Zoboslai, Gakpo, and Nunez.
yeah. I mean, you even look at their, even some of the players on the bench, like they don't have a lot of injuries at the moment. Liverpool, they're able to rotate the few
Yeah,
players around that they have, and I know Jota is still injured, but no, he's back on the bench. Never mind. Like even that, he's coming back in minutes. So,
that's another. I mean, I've just seen on the bench for Spurs, Matthias Tell.
jeez.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
literally just come
he's
on.
just come on. Yeah. Oh, is
I just
Richarlison injured now?
Richarlison's
Oh.
injured, so Matthias Tell's coming on.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a weird one for me. I don't know how you feel about it, or you don't really. Yeah, Richarlison can't continue night over, and it's a Spurs debut for Matthias Tell.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so he originally was supposed to come to United. We then said we're not going to pay his £8 million loan fee. He never wanted to leave Bayern Munich in the first place. He then goes to an offer to Spurs. He says no. Then it turns out he is coming to Spurs. Would you want a player that doesn't want to play?
To be honest, no.
No.
Although I do understand it for Spurs that they need actual bodies in order to try and stay up from relegation battle.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, then it's understandable. But once you're fighting a bit higher up, you just wouldn't want a player that isn't willing to commit everything for the badge.
Yeah, it is strange. And I think the new
Oh, oh, oh.
Tell you what, I need to sort my signal out of my house. I do apologise to anyone, the whole 16 of you that are watching. It's been hard work. The Wi-Fi, actually, the signal on this where I live has been shocking the last couple of weeks. I have to download and upload stuff for work, and it took me over 2 hours to upload 10 photos earlier.
Jesus.
Absolute joke. But I think we'll call it an evening there, chaps.
Yeah.
So, yeah, on the whole, I'm disappointed that Rashford's gone, but I'm happy that Rashford's gone. Arsenal still need a striker. Will's not calling for Arteta's head just yet.
Nah.
And we hope that Ange Postecoglou gets the sack and Spurs get relegated. I think that's pretty much the sum of it.
Yeah.
That's the sum of the talk of the league for 1st to the 6th of February. So we'll clip that, and that will be our intro. Maybe we should start doing that. We're going to have an on-air meeting now. We're going to start doing intros for the shows at the end of shows, and that's a new idea. I'll come up with that just now. So, and as I'm talking, Mr. Postacoglu's just come on my screen. Just who we are, mate.
Yeah.
No, really appreciate you coming on tonight, mate. Where can we find you? What socials are you at, or are you just going to pop up on here every now and again?
Yeah. I'm mostly here on the podcast here, but I am on Twitter at Willie Chili Bry.
Nice one. And yeah, you can find me at Nate Dales on Twitter. Please make sure you're liking, subscribing the channel. Keep an eye out for shows that are coming up. We are doing our absolute best, but we are really struggling for people. So check out the ticker going along at the bottom. We are recruiting. We are interested in having anyone joining the channel, whether you're a United fan, Arsenal fan, or just any Premier League club. Please get involved and get in touch. Slide into our DMs at BallsOut_pod, and we will get back to you and get you involved. And if you even want to host a show, we will definitely have that conversation with you, because we are really wanting to push this channel over the next couple of months, going into that international break at the end of March, and see where we are lying there. But for now, have a good evening, and we will catch you again soon.